So yesterday, during the 4th of July holiday, Trump had a phone call with Putin, and they had a what was described as a constructive business-like talk about ending the war as quickly as possible between Russia and Ukraine. Essentially, Ukraine being the NATO proxy and Russia. So this is a war that's been going on for 5 years now, and we're talking hundreds of thousands of people have been killed. Now, we don't know exactly what the numbers are because there's a fog of war and there's a lot of propaganda going on. But reporters, after the fact, can do their research, and if they're allowed on the ground, can look around and see just how many people actually got killed. Supposedly, there's a lot of citizens that have been killed, and both sides point to the other one that is responsible for that. This war is very dangerous on a lot of ways. First of all, obviously, Russia being a nuclear power. Ukraine has still a fairly large population that they've been throwing into the meat grinder. They have the biolabs, they have the nuclear power plants. Russia has had its oil infrastructure, its petroleum infrastructure being targeted. So, like refineries, offloading ports. If it's not bad enough, we had the earthquake in Venezuela that put 1 million barrels a day offline coming from there. And plus you had the Persian Gulf mess that has put something of like 10 million barrels a day offline. And even more is being put offline because Ukraine is sending drones and attacking Russian energy infrastructure. My concern is with all these events that we're attacking the very inputs that make our advanced civilization possible, that we would have something on the order of something like the Bronze Age collapse, where you had a systematic collapse of several things, but you had a breakdown of trade and the information. During the Bronze Age, writing became more advanced, which is not exactly the same, doesn't carry as the same metaphor today with technology and the internet. But nonetheless, it is similar. That is that communication has become a lot more advanced, and I could talk to somebody on the other side of the world. So we're having these massive changes. We're having attacks on the very thing that makes our civilization possible. My concern is, like I said, a massive worldwide energy-induced depression, or even we're heading into some kind of a systematic collapse. So we don't need these wars at all. They're ideologically driven. Russia, yes, wants to control the former Soviet Union because, there's a list of issues with Russia, demographics, security reasons. On the other side of that, you have the egalitarian nihilistic West, or the so-called leaders of the West that are being produced by these universities that want to push their agenda into Eastern Europe and eventually into Russia, their depopulation agenda. So there is that going on as well. Of course, you got the Israeli conflict and the Israeli conflicts, say that in plural, that is going on, that is also ideologically driven. We have a really serious problem with our, like I said, so-called leaders doing things that is just destroying, like I stated before, what makes our civilization possible. So if we can get an end to this conflict that is constructive, that is not based on appeasement, but based on mutual respect between everybody, that would be ideal. I'm not sure if that would be very easy to do. See, wars are, like somebody said, I forget who said this, wars are very easy to get into and they're very hard to get out of. Ukraine is not going to win this war. They don't have the ability to. You would have to have another state actor get involved directly to do that. And of course, that risks escalation, where you would be playing with nuclear war possibly. So we don't want that. We want a constructive end to the conflict. And how exactly that looks, my imagination is that that they're probably going to have to agree to a lot of Russia's terms. And of course, they would have like a demilitarized zone that stops where Russia is already there. And then Russia will probably seek for the rest of Ukraine, seek it to be sort of a puppet state like Belarus is. How far are they going to get with that? I don't know. What the details are, the devils are in the details, as somebody would say. But anyway, so if there's an end to these conflicts, that'd be great. How are you going to end them? The details are where the problems are at.